Daze. Daze is the newest measure in DIBELS for grades 3 through 6. Daze is based on maze procedures for reading comprehension. The name comes from DIBELS maze. Daze assesses the ability to construct meaning from text using word recognition skills, background information and prior knowledge, familiarity with syntax and morphology, cause and effect reasoning skills. The great thing about Daze is it can be administered individually in small groups or to a whole class at once. Students silently read and circle the word choice which best replace the omitted word. Students complete the assessment independently and silently. Students' Daze results are entered on the web. Scores are automatically tabulated. There are student worksheets, scoring keys, and a timer for the materials that are needed. Daze is administered at the beginning of the year, grade 3, through the end of the year, grade 6. You can also progress monitor Daze as needed. The materials needed for Daze are student worksheets, scoring key, and a timer. The student materials for Daze. In your kit, you can find Daze student booklets as well as the Daze teacher books with administration directions and scoring keys. Here is an example from the beginning of the year benchmark, grade 5. You'll notice on the page about every 7th word is omitted and replaced with a box containing 1 correct word and 2 distractors. Students silently read and circle the word choice which best replaces the omitted word. The assessment is timed for 3 minutes. Notice the Keep Going note on the bottom of the page to remind students to complete all 3 passages in the measure. Here are some things to remember as you administer the Daze assessment. Ensure students have pencils ready and write their names on the booklets before beginning. Use the scoring key to read directions aloud verbatim. Allow 30 seconds for students to complete 2 practice items, then review the practice items. Set the timer for 3 minutes. Start the timer after you say begin. Score the worksheets and enter the results at mCLASShome.com without students present. There are some as-needed reminders for Daze. If a student starts reading the passage aloud, say, "Remember to read the story silently." If a student is not working on task, say, "Remember to circle the word in each box that makes the most sense in the story." If a student asks you to provide a word for him or her, or for general help with the task, say, "Just do your best." The directions can be found in your kit in a book titled The Daze Benchmark Assessment Administrator's Directions and Scoring Keys. The directions are on page 1. Use these directions for each benchmark. Read them verbatim. You will need a timer for this assessment. The clearest method for students to mark answers is with a circled response. A check mark or other symbol is also acceptable as long as it's clear that this is the word the student has selected for the 3 choices. If there are erasure marks, scratched out words, or any other extraneous marks, yet the student's final response is obvious, score the item based on the obvious final response. Mark and correct any items left blank before the last item the student attempts within the 3-minute time limit. It is clear that the student omitted this item because a subsequent item has been marked. Items left blank because the student could not get to them before time ran out should not be marked wrong. This student worksheet is the grade 5 beginning of the year benchmark form. A student circled and or underlined the words he chose to complete the sentences. Scoring keys are provided for all Daze benchmarks and progress monitoring forms. The correct responses are bold. Mark a slash across a response to indicate the answer is incorrect. If you'll notice, there are 6 correct responses on this worksheet and 3 incorrect responses. To enter your Daze results, you'll go to mCLASShome.com. You'll enter your username and password and click mCLASS Reading 3D. From the time of year view, I will click the actual time of year column, which I'm going to use beginning of the school year, BOI. I'll go over here to record days, and you'll notice that this date column pops up. I can enter the date, and I can choose use this date for all students if all the students were assessed on the same day. Then I need to enter the total correct for each student and the total incorrect for each student. The score is calculated automatically. If I wanted to remove a score, I can tap Clear Entry, and that's going to clear it for that student. I make sure that I click Save so that I don't have to re-enter my results again. If I do not click Save, it's not going to save my results, and my data is not going to be in the computer. So I have to make sure that I click Save. If I hit Cancel, everything's going to go away. So it's going to exit out of the results mode, and there's not going to be any scores saved. So be certain to click Save, and you're done. So the hardest part about Daze is actually remembering to put the scores in. Some points to remember when doing Daze. Daze materials are available for benchmark and progress monitoring. You can administer Daze individually or as a group. Teachers cannot answer questions during the Daze administration. To enter scores, you will need to go to mCLASShome.com.